In this video, I'm going to tell you 3 ways to go ultralight, or at least lighten your pack weight. Firstly, I want to talk about what does it mean to be ultralight. I think a lot of people think like, oh, you're ultralight, you're sleeping on the ground, no tent, no sleeping pad, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, fair enough, some people do it that way. You can also go ultralight and still have some creature comforts, have a tent, all these things, full-size toothbrush. The first way is to just bring less stuff. And that might be obvious, but they say don't pack your fears, which means, you don't have to pack for every single worst case scenario. Be safe out there, bring what you need to feel safe. But when you're through hiking, you're going to be out for 4 or 5 days at a time between towns, which is a while. Stuff can definitely happen, but it's not forever. It's not forever. There's a lot you can get through in a few days without. So one part of this philosophy is also thinking about like, how much time are you going to spend at camp? How much time are you going to spend walking? Like for me, I spend most of my time walking when I'm through hiking, and I definitely want to sleep well, so I got to bring stuff for that. But I really don't spend a lot of time hanging out at camp. So things like, camp shoes or like a camp chair, no way. Like I don't hang out at camp long enough to use that stuff. A book, like I'm just walking most of the time. So, know yourself. Like if you're a person who likes to hang out at camp a lot, then you're gonna need stuff for that. So that's tip 1, bring less stuff. And the other thing about bringing less stuff is if everything can have multiple uses, that's great too. So can you use one thing for multiple purposes, and that will save you a lot of space and weight too. Okay, tip number 2, smaller stuff. So you can cut stuff down, or just get smaller versions of things. So one example of that would be like a pocket knife. When I started through hiking, I had like a full-size Swiss Army knife, and then I swapped that out for a tiny one, and cut a lot of weight and totally gets the job done, no problem. Another thing is like, sleeping pads. Like if you're 5 feet tall, you don't need a full-length sleeping pad. You get a small one, or some of the brands even make like 3/4 length sleeping pads. So you might be able to work with something like that. You can also cut pieces off of your gear that you don't need, to save some weight. And I did this with like backpacks that have a brain. Never use that, ditch that. So making your stuff smaller is tip number 2. And tip number 3 is pretty obvious: buy lighter gear. So this is definitely the one that I did last just because of expense, and wanted to get the most mileage out of the gear I had, and I didn't have the biggest budget. So but buying lighter gear and paying attention to that on all of the different types of things you're carrying is really important. Whether it's you're swapping out a sleeping bag for a quilt, or getting a lighter sleeping pad, or a titanium pot rather than a steel one, it all adds up. Those are my 3 tips for going lighter or getting to be ultralight, which is number 1, take less stuff. Number 2, take smaller stuff. Number 3, take lighter stuff. And, if you can do those things, then you don't have to sacrifice a ton of comfort, and you can get lighter at the same time.